How's it going, everyone? How are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going over a pretty big victory here for Chelsea. They just won today 1-0. Like I said, a massive win for Chelsea here. Although Liverpool might not be in the best space right now, Chelsea did incredibly well to still get past them, because you really can't count out Liverpool despite their slip-ups recently, since the turn of the year. Really, you really can't count them out. So this is a big win regardless, and although I have a couple of nitpicks, we'll go more over that later on. Still a solid win here. So let's get right into the lineups here. Liverpool came at us with a 4-3-3, their typical 4-3-3 that we have seen over the last few years. Alisson and goal, Robertson on the left, Kabak and Fabinho, who apparently were the 15th center back pair that Liverpool have used this season due to all the injuries. That is crazy. I'm pretty sure that's a Premier League record. Most center back duos ever used, that combinations ever used. Like, that is just mind blowing. Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right side of the defense, Jones, Wijnaldum, and Thiago, the center mid trio. Of course, Sadio Mane on the left, Roberto Firmino on top, and Mo Salah on the right. Their usual front three. That really hasn't changed too much, except when Jota was not injured, which is a bit of a talking point from this game. Interesting. On the bench, speaking of the main man, Diogo Jota. First up, James Milner, then Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Williams, Adrian, Shaqiri, Origi, and Keita and Williams rounds out their bench. Then we move to Chelsea's lineup. We played our typical 3-4-2-1 under Tuchel, the formation he's opted for. Sort of 5 in the back, occasionally more so 3 in the back. Mendy in goal, Rudiger, Christensen, and Azpilicueta, the center back trio. Speaking of the 3 in the back, on the left hand side we have Ben Chilwell, right hand side Reece James, Jorginho and Kante playing the center mid roles, Mount and Ziyech playing the more center attacking mid roles, and then Timo Werner leading the line, who actually had a pretty solid game, more so in the first half than the second, but pretty solid game today coming from Timo Werner. On the bench, of course, we have Kai Havertz, Mateo Kovacic, Pulisic, Giroud, Alonso, Emerson, Zuma, Kepa, and Callum Hudson-Odoi to round out our bench. Now, to get into the first half, the first couple minutes or so, it was for the most part leaning a little more towards Chelsea. It was a little more Chelsea. We saw Chelsea go a little bit forward, a little more forward, be a little more attacking oriented, had a bit more control than Liverpool in that game. Then Liverpool started to really settle, and they began to establish their infamous press, right? Their press where our defender would get the ball, there'd be 2 players charging at him, and they managed to establish that press. And I would say for a good 10 to 15 minutes, probably leaning a little more towards 15 minutes, Liverpool enjoyed a good chunk of control. They really controlled the game in that period. Like I said, their press was really holding us back. Couldn't quite get out. Towards the tail end of that 15 minutes, Chelsea slowly started to get the passes going to get out, and that's really all we needed, right? Where the good passes, the good movement to get over their press and manage to break through and get some kind of attack going, which is exactly what we did. And I was actually pretty happy with how we responded to their press, because when you play against Liverpool, you hear this word a lot. You hear suffering. You're gonna suffer when you play against Liverpool, and that's true. You're gonna suffer for periods where they're gonna press you, and you just have to take it. You just have to keep taking the pressure, and then find that release and be able to get out. A lot of teams rely on counters when they're going against Liverpool. I think Chelsea did well to turn, instead of just focusing on counters, although we did well with counters today, to instead focus more on trying to get a foothold in the game. And that's kind of what we did. The first half was a big tug of war. We just went back and forth with each other for control. And I will say, after the 15 minutes of Liverpool controlling, it was Chelsea's turn. Chelsea took the front foot and really started pressing. During that period, it was really good play from Chelsea. So I'll touch a little more on this when we get to the final thought section, but the front, that tooth, the bite, I guess, in front of goal was still lacking there. But regardless, our attacking play did look good. Our attacking play still looked pretty good. Oh, where do I begin? So there was a cross in. We had about 3 chances in this period. No, two major chances, and then one would come later, a little bit more when Liverpool was controlling the game. But the 2 chances we had came through Timo Werner. There was a ball over the top. I think it was Ben Chilwell who put it in over the top for Timo Werner. He did well to control it. Did well to get away from the defender initially, but he the ball was bobbling, so when he hit it, it sort of just flew over the bar. It was a good effort from Timo. It was a good effort, and that pretty much summed up his role in this game. His role was speed. Get in behind Liverpool's defense, get behind them, and make them uncomfortable. Make them a little more reluctant to press up with their defense, more so than anything else. And Timo did really well today with that. That was his objective. He did well, especially in the first half. Second half, we'll touch on it in a bit, but it was not as much, not as effective. But in the first half, for sure, Timo did incredibly well with his getting behind the line little thing there. Then his second chance came in. It was a cross, another cross in from the right side, comes in, and although I feel like the commentators were a little harsh, just a little bit harsh on him, I do think he could have done better as well. Essentially, the cross comes in, and he's right. It's just him and Alisson, pretty much him and the keep, and it was an awkward angle, awkward ball placement where it was at, to where if he had touched it, brought it down, controlled it, and then took his shot, probably could have done a bit better. Not a bit, he probably could have done much better, to be honest. But instead, he opts for the one-time volley, and it's just straight at Alisson's face. Honestly, it was straight into his hands, and he's just able to catch it and kills the attack right then and then. And like I said, in that period where we controlled the game up until, I'd say, like the 30th minute or so, we did well. And then again, like I said, it's a big tug of war in the first half, shifted back to Liverpool. However, we were getting some glimpses of some potential counters, some potential breaks, and eventually I think it was Firmino who had a chance, missed, and it transitioned into a counter. Eventually it falls to Kante. Kante puts in a nice ball into Mount, and what a run from this guy, man. Who's been probably our best player this entire season. And so he receives the ball from Kante. He's on the left hand side of the field, just about on the edge of the 18, a little bit behind in their defensive third, pushes inward and just keeps going. He notices there's no real pressure. Fabinho's really the only Liverpool defender that really put any kind of pressure on Mount, but it was not enough to make Mount feel uncomfortable, to make him feel like, oh, I need to go backwards, or I need to do something, extra to try and get this going. No, he just kept taking the touch, kept pressing forward, skipped past a couple defenders, and then boom, just lets it go right when he gets the opening. He finds the opening, does well to get the space, lets it go, bottom right hand side of the goal, 1-0. Oh wait, before, actually, real quick, sorry to cut myself off there. One more thing actually did happen. There was another ball through for Timo Werner in that sort of stretch where we were controlling the game. So Timo gets the ball through and goes and just gunning. He's essentially almost one-on-one with Alisson, and he's gunning for the goal. Alisson kind of fluffs it, messes it up. Would have been another mistake. Timo rounds Alisson after Alisson essentially just misjudges the ball and puts it in the empty net. But they went to VAR, and Timo was, marginally offside. It was his shoulder was the final judgment through VAR, but because I can't show you, or I'm not going to show you guys, you're not going to have it on screen, I need to explain this in words. It was literally centimeters. Fine margins of offside, but they called it offsides regardless, so it didn't count. And then eventually later on, Mount has his little run in the box and puts it into the back of the net, bottom right hand corner. I think it was great awareness from Mason Mount, but at the same time, it was also partially poor defending from Liverpool. Like I said, Fabinho was really the only player that applied real pressure onto Mason Mount. Only player. I kid you not, he was really the only player that put a lot of pressure. Despite Mason making this dangerous run into their 18-yard box, Fabinho was really the only player to apply any kind of real pressure on Mason. And ultimately, it ended up with Mason putting it in the back of the net. And that was the 42nd minute. We were able to see out the game. The half. We were able to see out the half relatively comfortably. I think Liverpool had a chance or two. Nothing really dangerous. And we were able to see out the first half. Quick note with the halftime analysts. I was a little annoyed. I don't remember their names. I don't know Liverpool players like that. But I was a little annoyed that the analysts at the second half kept saying, or one of them specifically kept saying "we," as in Liverpool. If you're an analyst, you got to be a little unbiased. You know, I know it's hard, especially like when I record the Premier League videos, and I'm talking about Chelsea. I try not to say we. I try to say Chelsea. For these videos are surrounded around Chelsea, so it's okay to not to be a little biased. But with those videos, I try to just say Chelsea. And that kind of annoyed me. Just a little side note there. That kind of annoyed me with the analysts at halftime, that they kept saying we, and then he would correct himself like Liverpool. I was just like, that's kind of annoying. But anyways, just a little nitpick there. Anyways, moving into the second half, I will say I think the second half is when we became a little more reliant on the counterattack. This is when we started to focus a little more on the counterattack. It was a bit rough, but right away, 47th minute, and this is where so much controversy has happened. A ball comes in. I think it's Firmino who's about to kick the ball in. Kante is kind of reaching for the ball, flailing like this, and as he's doing that, reaching for the ball, I think Firmino kicks it, hits N'Golo Kante in the arm, what would be a handball. And it's tough. It's really tough with the handball rule because it's so complicated nowadays. They've changed the rules so many times that it's just so complicated. And by the law, it should have been a penalty. And I was honestly really surprised that they didn't even go to VAR, I think, or they didn't even pause at least to go to VAR. And by what else has happened this season, I'm surprised they didn't call it a penalty. Like that's a handball that has been called a penalty multiple times throughout the season, yet it wasn't. And I was surprised. I was like, well, when it hits his hand, I'm like, oh, man, that's a penalty. That's damn, like all that work and just unwound like that. You know, a couple minutes into the second half, and just like that, we're gonna, it's already a penalty. And no, Martin Atkinson just let it go. Martin Atkinson, by the way, the ref, let a lot go this game. I mean, there probably should have been like at least 2 or 3 yellow cards for Chelsea. I'm gonna be honest with you, there should have been at least 2 or 3 yellow cards for Chelsea, and he just let them go. And I was really surprised. He let a lot go in this game. Did not throw a single card up. Not a single card was thrown by Martin Atkinson. I think that was really interesting. But yeah, that we escaped. Really, we escaped that, and fortunately, it wasn't a penalty. The rest of the half was, I want to say Timo was really the only one that had a clear-cut chance. Other than that, most of the second half we spent defending and holding Liverpool back. I think the biggest problem for Liverpool was sort of our problem recently, and it was our attacks look really nice going forward, but that last little part just isn't there. And I think Klopp in the post-match interview described it perfectly. He said it's 80% there. We're just missing that final 20%. We're just missing that final little to put it in the back of the net. We just don't have that, and I think that's what Liverpool really lacked today, is that extra oomph in front of goal. There was a chance from Sadio Mane where he receives the cross, this ball in, and he just tries it first touch, and it just did not come off well at all, to the point where he messed up so bad that he was like, where'd the ball go? You can see in the replay, he kind of turns around, and he's looking for the ball. That's how bad he messed it up. And that's kind of that pretty much summed up Liverpool's day in front of goal. It just wasn't there. They just didn't have anything in front of goal. That was where they really suffered. That's where they really struggled. But like I said, the second half for the most part was just enduring what Liverpool were throwing at us. Naturally, Liverpool being down, they were gonna throw everything they had at us. They were gonna keep throwing more and more and more attacks. They were gonna keep pressing higher. And although we should have honestly taken advantage and probably made it 2-0, I think it was fine seeing it out the way we did, and we were very fortunate. Well, we weren't really lucky. No, that's not a good word to use. It was just a really solid game from Chelsea, honestly, from a tactical point of view, from an all-around point of view, but mostly defensively. I think we did well defensively, and that kind of sums up our games under Tuchel. And we were able to see out a pretty nervy second half where there were multiple points where it's like, oh, they didn't score. Like, that was just kind of, there were multiple chances where Liverpool were looking really good going forward, and then it just collapsed towards the end. So we were able to see out the second half and see out the game 1-0, a massive win that pushes up temporarily, at least, to the top 4, assuming West Ham and Everton win their games. Then we'll be, relegated back down. But big win, a big win. Final thoughts here. That is now 10 games under Tuchel where we have not lost. We have 7 wins, 3 draws, no losses. Now the problem, and this is one of the nitpicks I have, is that we've only conceded 2 goals. In those 10 games, we've only conceded 2 goals, holding 8 clean sheets. That is amazing. That's a huge defensive turnaround to what was the rest of the season. Massive, right? but offensively is where we're struggling a bit. So in those 10 games, only 3 have we scored more than a goal, which again, it's not awful. Obviously, defense was probably our first issue. And I understand Tuchel's approach. He's sort of just going back to front. He's trying to work on defense, and then he's probably going to press up and just work on the rest of the team as it goes on. But it's a little frustrating. We scored 11 in 10, and there have been already, 3 games where we haven't even scored a goal. So it's a little frustrating. Just a little bit, just a little frustrating. We're just struggling to score. Much like Liverpool, we're missing that bite at the end. We're missing that extra little step at the end. But we're grinding out these games. And like I said, 10 matches, 7 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses. And I think that's what's really important here. And if you didn't believe in Tuchel when he beat Spurs, if you didn't believe in Tuchel when he beat Atletico, if you didn't believe in him in those 2 big games, beating Liverpool, taking down Klopp, honestly, you gotta believe in him now. I don't want to say he's just tactically adept. He's capable of keeping up with all these other experienced managers, and I have full confidence in him riding into the future. I think we can go pretty far with Tuchel if he sticks around and keeps performing the way he is. But yeah, that's it. That's my review for the Liverpool versus Chelsea game. A huge win today that pushes us up to the top 4. We need to continue this momentum. But if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. Go check out the socials in the description. Twitter is @BlueHermit1. Instagram is @BlueHermit_. Please share your socials with all your friends, family. Everybody know. Let the people know Blue Hermit's where it's at. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.